Welcome to Reddit Reads r/ProRevenge. Our first Reddit post is from Jakix. How my dad conned a con man, then ruined his conning business. Years ago, shortly after I moved out, my dad decided he wanted to remodel his bathroom and hired a local contractor, I will refer to as DB, to do it, that fixed a clogged sink for him once. From the start, my dad was extremely skeptical of contractors and did not want to get scammed, so after they agreed on the price for labor, my dad asked him for an invoice for the cost of all the materials. He took said invoice to one of his coworkers, whose bill was a plumber or in construction or something, to look over the list of materials and see if the quote was fair, and right off the bat DB was trying to do close to a 50 markup on the materials. So instead of paying his invoice, my dad just bought all the materials himself, saying he knows a guy who gives him amazing discounts, so DB doesn't get suspicious that my dad was onto his game. After 3 months, the bathroom is not close to being done. Despite DB telling him it would take 2 months, my dad had to travel for work and would be gone a week, so he asked me to house it, make sure DB shows up to work and does not steal shit. Right off the bat, DB tries to be all buddy-buddy with me, but I did not like the guy and just brushed him off, asking how the bathroom was coming. Over the course of the week, DB tried to upsell me on a bunch of things he said needed to be done to finish the bathroom. Most of it was electrical work, which he did not have a license for. My dad filled me in before he left about what was quoted in the labor, and there was no electrical work quoted, and I told him no, just stick to the original quote. Once my dad comes back, I filled him in on all the additional charges DB tried to tack on. He also did not show up for 3 days, saying he hurt his shoulder tripping over his cat. Then he tried to install the new ceiling light, which he was not asked to install because we had an electrician coming to install it. After a heated discussion between DB and I, he stopped installing the ceiling light and started laying tile, during which he broke a quarter of the tiles. After this debacle, my dad did some investigating and looked up his license and found out that not only was the license expired, it did not belong to DB. So my dad asked my brother and I to come over when he was going to confront DB about lying about his license. A very heated argument broke out when my dad refused to let DB to enter the house to collect his tool and said we would bring the tools out to him. DB then threatened to press charges against me for assault when I accidentally brushed his shoulder when I was passing him in the hallway, and I refused to apologize. After the cops showed up, DB quickly tried to play the victim, but the cops told DB to collect his tools and leave. The bathroom still unfinished, but my dad did not have to pay DB for his 3 months of labor and used that money to hire real contractors to finish the bathroom. It only took them a week and a half to finish. After this, my dad contacted the local news to tell them about DB being a conman. A few months later, the news did an investigation story about him, and they found other people DB scammed, where DB would start to work on their bathroom, but once he got paid, he would cut and run, leaving the bathroom unfinished and stealing all the materials. The news then set up a sting for DB and exposed him for being a conman, and he was arrested not long after the news story aired. Edit TL Drive: bad man hired to redo dad's bathroom tries to rip dad off. Dad fires bad man for lack of licenses and for being an asshole. Dad tells local news about bad man. Local news exposes bad man. Bad man eventually arrested. This comment is from Splirty3. DB then threatened to press charges against me for assault when I accidentally brushed his shoulder when I was passing him in the hallway, and I refused to apologize. His legal fees must be through the roof whenever he goes on the subway or anything similar. This comment is from Tifertinium. It's a shame that your dad's bathroom was out of commission for so long, but good on him for ruining the guy. I hope his other victims were able to recoup some of their losses. This comment is from Incense and Elephants. Ha yeah, and avoid any networking events with him too. Won't want to rub shoulders with a guy like that. Our next Reddit post is from Deleted. Group attempted to cut me out after I did about 60 of the work. They failed. This happened about 12 years ago while I was studying aeronautical engineering. Due to some money-grubbing legislation tactics, most who have gone to college know about the unnecessary courses that are tacked onto the degrees in order to graduate. One of those courses for my degree was a business class. Seriously, you'd think these guys would understand that most engineers don't do the business side of things. Thankfully, we had a teacher who was understanding of the fact that many of us in the class were bored out of our minds. I'll admit to having always been a Jecknerd who loved making good grades. If I don't understand something, I run at it hard to try to change that. This class stumped me for quite some time, and then a nightmare of a project was announced, one worth 50 of our grades. The school was a small one, the class a little more than 30 people, and I was assigned to work with 3 people I knew from other classes. We had problems straight away. 2 of the people remembered me from a calculus class that they barely passed as the person who sailed easily through, and decided to dump their portion of the work on me straight away, knowing I wouldn't allow myself to fail. They were right. At first, my other group member tried to pick up the slack as well, pulling hard to do a difficult project in a subject we barely understood. I'll admit she was a trooper. Unfortunately, the day of the project finally comes and I'm sick as a dog, pretty much quarantined in the clinic due to bronchitis. I managed to send a message to the teacher. The 2 slackers managed to wrangle the presentation from the girl who worked with me and presented it to the class, declaring that they had done all of the work and I was skipping class because they had told me that they were going to tell the teacher what happened. My initial grade was an F. I was beyond pissed until I realized something important. Part of the project involved a written report, of which I held the only copy since I was the one to type it up. Cue the revenge. Privately, I went to the teacher with my notes and the report in order to get the grade I earned and to get him in on the plot. He agreed since it seemed fun, and he planned to fail them anyway for academic dishonesty. Publicly, there was no report. The classmates that had attempted to take all the credit began to approach me, first demanding the report. Most of the time, my response was, "But I didn't do any work," in a sickly sweet voice. Next, they attempted to act all buddy-buddy, trying to convince me that it had all been a joke and promising that they'd tell the professor that I had done some work, giving me some credit so that I had the possibility to pass. This was met with stony silence on most occasions before I told them that I'd rather fail than let them pass. Things escalated after that to include the door of my dorm room being rapped on at odd hours of the night, shoving, and them stealing my backpack and notebooks in order to try to find the report themselves. One of them even asked my roommate to let them search for a report I had written and forgotten, for our group didn't have her as my roommate the following semester. Things finally came to a head on the last week of classes. I had held out on them for a month, not telling any of my group mates what I had done, and enough time had elapsed that even if they were to turn in the report now, it would be so late that they'd still have failed. They hadn't even attempted to do the report themselves, and the girl who had worked with me was in hysterics over the very real possibility of failing the class. It was what the teacher and I had been waiting for, and he finally decided to return the reports. The 2 slackers glared daggers at me as the teacher returned the report of every other group in the class before stopping in front of them. He was holding what looked to be one extra report, and they were immediately looking hopeful. He set a single sheet of paper on one of their desks before moving to the desk of the girl who had worked along with me and set the report on her desk. I had to dock some points for dishonesty, but you and your partner did decently, he stated before moving on. My partner realized what I had done. We only got an 82 on our project, but it was far better than the 0 that our ex-group mates received. I had been carefully documenting the harassment that the 2 slackers had put me through and ensured several witnesses saw some of what they did. 2 days after being informed that they were failing, the pair had a new problem. I gave the evidence to the administration of our school, and the teacher reported the academic dishonesty. The administration did a bit more digging and found that the pair had been making trouble for some time, and a number of students reported similar problems of having their work stolen. The slackers were expelled. This comment is from UNT97. This was amazing. I wish I would have thought of something like this in grade school law. This comment is from Kozikin. Great story, but as someone who works with a lot of consultant engineers, I do wish more of them did a business class. The amount of times I've had to show them why it's bad to have a margin of -9% on a project is too damn high. And no, Steve, I don't care that you had to drop it that low to win the job. Again, this comment is from Frickett. Dealing with slackers is the worst. You, my friend, are a hero to all students stuck in a group project. That was Reddit Reads r/ProRevenge. If you like this content, please subscribe and click the bell icon so you are notified of new uploads. We upload new videos every day. Also subscribe to our Patreon, as that will help us a lot. See you next time.